Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. I came on this week. Let me say this. The topics for this week's show is first of all, we're going to rebuttal what my very disrespectful friends came on this podcast and said. We talked about the quarterbacks and should you pay the quarterbacks. So I want to revisit that. And then we're going to give comps for all of the NFL rookie quarterbacks coming into this year. And then we'll talk a little bit about the news of the gambling the Colts player, because I'm sure all of you got questions because I'm a Colts fan. But here we go. So last week we were talking about quarterbacks and should you pay a quarterback, and the topic was should you pay Lamar Jackson. My thought was, for me personally, I really wouldn't pay Lamar Jackson top money now at this point. I think I would send him to a new team now at this point, because I don't think. Well, let me say this. In Lamar Jackson's career, Baltimore has had a tendency to not give him enough. Okay? Now, if they didn't give him enough on a rookie contract, what leads you to think once he gets paid that all of a sudden now they're going to just get him everything that he needs to win a Super Bowl? Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback. He is a quarterback that needs more help to win a Super Bowl. Some quarterbacks need a little bit less. Some, just need a little bit more help. It doesn't mean that you're a bad quarterback. But let me break that down a little bit more. When you give a quarterback, or the fear that every team should have, is you giving a good quarterback great money. Now every year new quarterbacks get top of the market value, and they never can fulfill those or they can never fulfill what's necessary to validate them getting all of that money. So, for instance, you get trapped into a situation like a Matthew Stafford, who's a good quarterback. He can get you a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl. You don't tie up like 20% of your roster's money into him because he needs help. Okay. Somebody like Dak Prescott, you don't tie up. Dak is a good quarterback. I know I'm floating back and forth. Dak is a good quarterback. Sorry, y'all. I just wanted to sip on my beverage a little bit. Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback. The Dallas Cowboys will not win a Super Bowl while he is making top of the league money. It's not feasible. He needs too much help. And the more that we try to act like he didn't need more help than that, I don't know. You can try to act like you're lying to me, or if you're lying to yourself, I'm not sure what you feel, but he needed more help. And the fact of the matter is, when you tie up 20% of a roster's money into a quarterback, you can't pay everybody. You can't pay everybody, and you can't get certain free agents in. That's just the nature of the beast. Now, as I said then, even the great quarterbacks, even the ones that I think are worth it, they still don't they still don't win their Super Bowls while they're making all of this money. Peyton Manning didn't make when he was making like 16% of his team's roster. He was not making. He was not winning Super Bowls at that time. When Tom Brady Tom Brady had a 9-year stretch when he was not winning Super Bowl. Guess what else was happening? He was getting paid at the top of the league. Okay, so when you look at when these quarterbacks are winning Super Bowls, I'll reiterate it. They win them on their rookie contracts, or they win them after they make all their money, like a Matthew Stafford. Ironic how that happened, because he had to take less money to do that. And we even confirmed then Tom Brady, when he went to Tampa Bay, took less money to play in Tampa, and he got his Super Bowl. Not mad at anybody for doing anything. But the point that I'm making is, when you pay a quarterback good money, or you pay a quarterback great money and he's good, not great, I think you're setting yourself up for failure, because, or let me say it like this. we can have a conversation about what's more important, the culture or the Super Bowl. If you had to give one up for the other, that would be a great conversation. I really would like to have that conversation with more people. But for me, I would give up the culture to win a Super Bowl. That's me. But I understand getting a guy like Lamar Jackson or getting a guy like Dak Prescott when you're like, listen, our culture is this is how we ride now. I'm swinging for the ring. That's just me. But I digress. You know, I just have felt like I had to talk about that a little bit more because once again, my friends were very disrespectful last week. They'll be back. They'll be back, but just wanted you to know that. So, um, also a little side note. So, one of the Colts players, Isaiah Rogers, was just caught gambling on his team, or he was just caught gambling on NFL games. This is a long line of people that did it. I'm sure people have been doing that forever. Sports betting and stuff like that. My only question is in terms of the punishment, and this is my perspective of it. Is what he did he bet on the Colts to lose and made money off of that? Or did he or wouldn't he sports bet? Did he bet on the Colts to win and then other teams to win and lose? Because all of this stems from, if we're going to be honest, Pete Rose getting caught, and that's why he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, another sport I know. But if you're betting on your team to win and y'all win and you make money off of that, I don't think that's as bad as you betting on your team to lose. I think that's completely different things. And I don't know. I really would like to hear what you guys feel about that. That's just my perspective. You know what I mean? So, like, for instance, he's about to get like perhaps a lifetime ban, and I think that's very serious. And I don't think it's fair to lifetime ban anybody if what they were betting on was their team winning. So I would like to know what he bet on because I'm not sure of those details. Um, I mean, I just think it's unfortunate to um to do that. You know what I mean? To a really good player. I think he's very talented, and yeah. So that's that. Um, also, let me slow it down a little bit. You gotta stay hydrated. I really enjoy being on here with you guys, and when people ask me about this podcast and everything about it, I always say like it's not really like hard for me to come on here. I feel comfortable being with you guys. I love engaging with you guys. I love talking to you guys about football. So that's why I can have a drink when I when we on here. So here's the next topic that we'll be talking about. So let me bring this in terms of the story. When I was younger, I used to watch college football as much as I did the NFL game. At this point, I'm a little bit busier. That's just when you become an adult, you get a little busier. I don't have time to watch all of college football. So I'm not going to be one of those people who act like I know who's going to be great and who's going to be bad. When we get to the draft and everything like that, I'm relying on people or these what's what I'm looking for. I'm relying on these people who say that they know so much more about football just as much as anybody else. So the college football guys, I listen to them. PFF, I listen to them. Sports Center, NFL.com, ESPN, all of those kind of things. I am relying on them. So the way that I'm going to do this, we're going to talk about the top five NFL quarterbacks, and I'm going to say if I like them, if I don't like them, if I think they're going to be good, if I don't think they're going to be good. Um, and who their comps are. You know what I mean? Who do I see in terms of a ceiling or a floor with them? And we'll get a little bit more into them. So, so I'm gonna start with the fifth quarterback taken, who was Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker, first of all, he had a great season. Um, and for Tennessee. And Tennessee hasn't been good in a long time. And one thing that I like about college quarterbacks is when they're coming into the league, when I look at them in college, was their team not a real like traditionally Tennessee has not been a very good team, even when they had good players. So for them to be a top five team, you know what I mean, like in top three in the SEC and stuff like that. I know it's not because they got all these recruits; they got the right recruits, and usually that means Hendon Hooker, or usually that means players like Hendon Hooker. So what am I talking about when I say that? So when I talk about Eli Manning going to Ole Miss, Ole Miss is not an SEC powerhouse. Why were they that good during that period of time? That'll be the same thing. We talk about Purdue and Drew Brees. You know, Purdue is usually not a very good team, but like when you get like when you, especially when it's a quarterback, when you get a quarterback that's like generational, you see it and it pops, and he'll be able to take this less talented team up against a really talented team, and you'll have a conversation of who's really better. Now, Hendon Hooker. So like I like that about Hendon Hooker. Now I'm looking at NFL.com's their pro comparisons. They compared him to Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones. I don't think that's really fair for him. I actually think he's going to be good. You know, so I think if you say like that's his floor, okay, somewhere between Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones could be his floor. I mean, Daniel Jones just got a $45 million a year contract. I think that was a mistake, but he did get that contract. So if that's his floor, that's it. But like I'm gonna reach here. I'm saying okay, so if his floor is like somewhere between Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones, his ceiling for me is somewhere around like Steve McNair, and I think that's a great comp. I think he'll fall somewhere in the middle of there. I mean, we're not going to see him this year. Um, he'll be 26 probably by the first time he starts. I mean, that's pretty late in an NFL career to just start or just begin to start, but he'll be mature at 26, coming in starting, and I think he's going to be good. So, if it so like NFL.com has his, I mean, has his floor as Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones. I have his ceiling being somewhere around Steve McNair, and I really do think he could be that good. Okay, Will Levis. Now, I think in every theory that a person could have, there's a point where even though that theory, you know, is a trend, and more times than not, that's where it'll be correct. I think there's always a knot in that in any theory. And I'm not big on Will Levis, but I will say the same thing for Hendon Hooker that I'll say for Will Levis. Kentucky is not usually a SEC powerhouse. So the fact that they got so high in the SEC, Will Levis was there. I just I'm just not a big Will Levis guy. So let me explain a little bit more. I'm the kind of guy I like boring or corny, not cool quarterbacks. I think quarterback is a position. I think the quarterback position should be a position where there's a lot of nerd work that goes along with the quarterback position. And a lot of stuff, most of the things you're going to do, 90% of the things that you're going to do, you're not going to be seen for doing it. Okay. So there's a lot of, you mean getting there 6 a.m., uh, 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 a lot of, you mean being there till 9 at night, you know, and then going home and doing this whole thing again, and leading the team, and you know, so when a guy comes in and he's cool, I'll say it at least takes him a while to catch on to that. And sometimes, so actually, Colin Coward is the first person that I heard kind of say that, and actually, I tend to agree. And Will Levis is the kind of guy that's more like, I'm going to take my shirt off. Look at me with my shirt off. You know, you know, put the pictures on me. And I don't think quarterback position is the position where put pictures on me is the right position. So usually as people, we usually take advantage of our strengths, of our God given abilities. Usually, a pretty person is not going to work the hardest. That's just usually not how that works. So for me, Will Levis, I think he's going to. Well, they have NFL.com has his pro comparison to be somewhere between Sam Darnold and Jay Cutler. I don't think he'll ever be Jay Cutler. Um, I have him being more like Ryan Leaf, you know, a person that you think is going to be your starter that's never going to be your starter. I think if I wish I could think of his name. Crap. Don't hate me, y'all. There was a quarterback that went to Arkansas. He was a backup quarterback for New England for a couple years. He had a cannon for an arm. But he's the guy. I can't think of his name right now. If you guys could tell me, please tell me his name because that would be really helpful. But that's who I'm thinking. I'm thinking Ryan Leaf. I'm seeing something like that. I just think he's a backup. I think I'm not seeing. I'm not feeling Will Levis. So we'll move on from there. And now we're going into my Indianapolis Colts pick, Anthony Richardson. So last week, JB asked me about how do I feel. He said he likes Anthony Richardson. He thinks he's the best of the quarterbacks. I said I don't know. You know, I have a fear here. So let me give you guys a little soliloquy. The problem is the problem is Patrick Mahomes worked. What I mean by that is Patrick Mahomes was a project. Between his mechanics not being great and between the system that was very easy for him to, generate um, yards and points in college, people looked at his skill set, which was a strong arm, which was mobility and everything like that, and said, we have a lot of potential here. And they took a swing on Patrick Mahomes, and he as of right now, for me, he's the best. Now he's not the greatest because greatest means he has to sustain this success for a certain period of time. But in terms of skill set, in terms of height, in terms of actuality, he's the best quarterback ever. The problem with projects is its potential. And once again, with the quarterback position, there's a lot of little things that you have to focus in on instead of the big things. Now, Anthony Richardson, when he was at Florida, I mean, his deep ball was great. You know what I mean? It's not like he can't run an offense, but looking at what he has to do in terms of completion percentage, Anthony Richardson has to be the kind of guy that completes like 70% of his passes. If he could turn into that, then we're having a completely different conversation about Anthony Richardson. My question is, here's my question because I don't want to seem like I'm on the bandwagon if he becomes good. I want to ask y'all a question. Your team's draft picks, do you have to love it when they are first drafted? Like, do you have to just buy in, or can you take or can you say, let me see how this is going to go before I basically say, oh yeah, I love this pick, because I know there's a feeling that I'm supposed to just love this pick, and I don't know what he is yet. So I'm gonna give you a height. If he completes 70% of his passes, yeah, he's Patrick Mahomes. He's great. He's the best Patrick, but he has to be that. The picks now, completion percentage up, with all that ability, yes. Now we're talking about a guy that can carry a roster. But I want to bring up another guy. who came in with a lot of potential. His name was Jamarcus Russell. And he had mobility. He had a cannon for an arm. He also had the same problems that Anthony Richardson had coming out of college in terms of completion percentage, in terms of easy passes just being easy. But down the field, yeah, he's great. So I'm saying I don't know what Anthony Richardson really is, but I do think he's either. I mean, of course, he could be anywhere in the middle, but he could be the best quarterback in this draft by far. Or he could be more like Jamarcus Russell, but I digress. CJ Stroud. Now, CJ Stroud coming out of Ohio State. Now, here's the one thing that I don't like about quarterbacks. So I'm gonna give you guys a little insight on me. I'm still adjusting to the fact that players are getting paid in college because when I was growing up, the best quarterbacks, like when I was growing up, like going to high school, for the rest of, I mean, up until like the last, like I would say 3 or 4 years, the best quarterbacks were not going to top programs. Matter of fact, every quarterback that was good, I can't say every, but like 90% of the quarterbacks that were good went to programs that were lower tier programs. And for me, I always look at that and I say, well, how is that possible? How come they didn't go to Ohio State? How come they didn't go to Florida? How come they didn't go to Florida State? Why did they end up at Miami of Ohio? Why did they end up at Purdue? Why did they end up at, wherever? You know what I mean? Um, my theory is it's not that they weren't that good. They learned how to what they learned in college is how to carry a roster. Because when they played somebody, they always had the worst roster. So they'll always be ready to have the worst roster. So that means when injuries happen, when lack of talent is there, it doesn't really bother them. It doesn't phase them because they're used to playing a Florida with Wyoming's talent. so that's how that goes to me. So with that said, I'm adjusting, but as of right now, I still don't like quarterbacks that go to top schools because you have more talent than everybody that you play against. That's not going to show itself in the NFL. You're not going to have the best offensive line. Your offensive line is not going to be better than their defensive line, and your wide receivers are better than their DBs. That's not going to happen. So so it's kind of easy for a quarterback to be great at Ohio State because you only got to play 3 teams a year that are comparable. So that's just how that is. So I have to see about CJ Stroud. And him going to Houston, we got to see. He's gonna have to. They're gonna look at him and say he's the kind of guy that's gonna move this roster along. With that said, NFL.com has his comps to be Dak Prescott and Jared Goff. Dak Prescott is interested. I do think he could be. Actually, I think they got that one a little bit right. Somewhere between Dak Prescott and Jared Goff. I think what I mean by that is I think he has a potential to excel. I think he has the ability to potentially be great, but I gotta look at him. He's going to Houston and he's gonna have the worst roster, and I don't know what that looks like for him. So I have to not be so optimistic on what he can do. And I'll just say we'll see. You know. And finally, our number one pick of the draft, which was Bryce Young out of Alabama. Where do I start with him? I would go him being number 2 in terms of he could be all the way up here or all the way down here behind Anthony Richardson in this draft. And I'm not sure. And I say that because when you look at, he can be a 70% completion guy. He can. He's shown it. He's also very light and very short. Usually, the top quarterbacks are not short. Insert well, let me just say, Drew Brees being the quarterback that you would go to say, what about him? What about Russell Wilson? Guys like that. I agree that he's of that, elk. However, I just see I mean, any athleticism, he's now going to be far less athletic in comparison to the defenses he's going to play. They're going to look at him and say, we'll find his weaknesses. And I don't know if his frame or his height allows him to be so dynamic that he compensates and he finds new ways to beat you, you know? Um, so I really got to see him, but I like his demeanor. I like what he was able to do. I like his completion percentage. I like his leadership ability, you know? So I'm a little bit higher. Like, does he have a Pro Bowl? I think he might have one or two Pro Bowls in him. Does he have a Super Bowl? That's the biggest question mark that I have about him, and that is still to be seen. Now, their comparisons for Bryce Young, excuse me, is Tua and Teddy Bridgewater. I think they're saying the same thing that I'm saying. That's not a high comparison. With that said, those are two people when they came out of college, you looked at them and said, there's a chance, So I'll give him that. You know what I mean? I just have to see him, Like I said, when it comes to rookies now, I have to look at it a little bit more objectively and say, I'm not spending I'm not spending 3 hours a day looking at college players. So that's here nor there. So that pretty much wraps everything up for today. Guys, this has been great. I'm once again we want to thank you guys for tuning in and helping us grow. This is Cuz You Don't Know Football Season 3. You can catch us once again at YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and once again on our new partnership with Spotify. So it's great being here with you guys. I want to thank you guys once again for tuning in. I'm your boy Tariq, telling you, cuz you don't know football. I'm gonna see you guys next week. Take it easy.